It's the Eagle Community Television Forum with your host, Gary Shorman.
Hi, and welcome to the Forum on Eagle Television. Good to have you along as our forum's brought to you by Schmidt. I'm Gary Shorman, and with me is our guest, Alan Schmidt. Alan, it's good to see you because at one point you were a state senator and you've just been appointed, but good to have you here.
Well, it's good to be here. It's been a couple of years since I've had an opportunity to be here with you.
Do you miss politics? Or are you still in politics?
I've got so many other things going that I don't miss that part of it, being away from home for 5 months and going through some of the rigmarole that you normally do. But I'm still involved in some of the government activities in Topeka.
Now, I do know that you haven't stopped doing things because you're just appointed to the State Civil Service Board. And that's one thing. You're also working with Developmental Services on a big project they have. I know you have work with TMP. Then you also have a little project on the side with a Vineyard that you're doing north of town.
I do, and you missed one. I'm on the KanCare advisory board.
Got to get that in. So you're not wasting any time sitting around, are you?
I tend to stay pretty busy, but that's good. And then we just got our 14th grandchild, so you know what that's like.
I do know. I know we have 4, and it's a busy time.
It adds some real flavor, doesn't it?
It does. Well, Alan, I want to talk a little bit about, first off, you were just appointed recently, and then we'll talk about some of the others as well. But the Kansas State Civil Service Board. What exactly is that? I saw that name. Sounds important. Sounds like it does a lot, but I couldn't tell you one thing they do. What is that about?
Well, the Kansas Civil Service Board is appointed by the governor and confirmed by the state senate to do the hearings, the appeals of civil servants, classified. There's classified civil servants and there's unclassified. Classified have certain rights to where if they were demoted or fired or something happened to them, they can appeal to our board. There's 5 of us that are appointed, and it's just like being in a court with a hearing. We have lawyers on both sides a lot of times, and we hear the evidence on both sides and then determine whether the state took the right action or had enough evidence to do what they did, to discipline the individual.
And so that is individuals from across the state, or do you deal with just individuals in this part of the state?
No, this is for the whole state. So anybody in the civil service position in Kansas, let's say in the prisons, just about anything, Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, any of those positions that are civil servants classified, that is, we can hear those appeals.
So is this a paid position? Is this something that you campaign for, or is it just one of those things that you donate your time to the state?
I'm reimbursed for travel, and they give a little stipend to go down there, but it's really service oriented, and I was asked to put an application in after I left the state senate and decided to put my name in, and they reviewed it, and they asked me to be on this Civil Service Board.
So what would you hear? What would be some examples of what you would hear?
Well, we had an individual, I think I can tell this without giving names, we had an individual who was a high security individual in one of the state prisons, and he was let go for a number of reasons. So we had to listen to the warden. We had the warden for 5 days, mind you, away from his position in day-long hearings with attorneys to determine whether there was rightful cause for him to be disciplined and dismissed. And the board actually came back and said no. And they had to reinstate him in another position. So that was pretty high profile, and we've had several of those from the prisons.
So it can be any job that the state would have across the board.
Yes.
Not only across the state, but really from management all the way down to some others as well.
That's correct. A lot of your management positions are considered unclassified, so they're dealt with like a contractor. You can fire a contractor without notice. But a classified employee is maybe a little lower on the totem pole, but has other rights to a hearing and appeals.
It's a fairness issue too. Is that how you make the judgment? Obviously some legal there, but then there's a fairness thing as well.
It really is. We had one situation where an individual might have been considered a whistleblower, and there was some disciplinary action, and so there was some hearings that had to take place determining whether that was a whistleblower discipline action, and so it gets pretty technical.
Now, are the qualifications you have common sense, or or do you have to have some sort of legal background to make this work? Because
No.
I don't remember you being an attorney or anything that in the legal profession.
Far from attorney. I'm not there. I've got friends that are attorneys.
But you get to be a judge, basically,
That's it.
and based on fairness and how it's presented to you from a rural standpoint as well. That's interesting.
That is correct. We do have 2 attorneys on the board right now, and then there's 3 others that are non-attorneys. So when it gets into some of the legal matters, we have that expertise there to deal with those issues.
Well, it's interesting service to our state to be able to do that and help out. Is this a once a day, once a year, once a month kind of deal?
It's kind of on call. We'll be told that we have a board hearing coming up, let's say a month out or 2 months out. Sometimes the state settles with the individual. Other times it comes forward, and then we're asked to come down. Actually, we're told to come down to Topeka and then sit usually for a day or 2 for the hearing.
Well, the state has a lot of different volunteer or somewhat volunteer jobs like this to do. And you said they asked for you to put in an application. Is that what somebody does if they want to be involved in the state and donate their time?
Well, when I was a state senator, they were looking for people out west. Mm-hmm. And I put Tom Pittner's name in for the Banking Commission. Tom served really well for a number of years, I think maybe 1.5 terms, maybe even 2 full terms. Then they contacted me and asked if I would apply for Board of Regents, which I put an application for Board of Regents. I wasn't chosen. I don't know if I was on the short list or the long list, but they came back and said, would you consider, they had an opening on the Civil Service Board. And so once I checked into it, I said, yeah, I'm still into serving. That's why I was the state senator. Yeah. It's about service. That's why I was in the military.
It's about service.
It's about serving, yes.
Well, one of the other things you're serving on, developmental services right now, and they're doing some things trying to, I'd say, reinforce some things that happen statewide where they're trying to get dollars in. Tell me about the project you're working on at Developmental Services.
Well, right now we're looking at some funding issues. We are primarily funded through Medicaid, which is people in poverty, and most of the people that we serve, which are the people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that we serve in this part of the state, 18
and you serve
counties.
18 counties here in the northwest part of the state.
Yes, 505 individuals right now. The payment for those individuals and for our services is generally through Medicaid, state and federal level. Well, you know what the deficit's been like, both at the state level and at the federal level. So they're just not enough dollars coming in to continue the services or expand the services. So we're looking back to a more public way, or I should say private way, of raising funds for DSNWK. And we just turned 50 years old. 50 years.
Here there was a big party about a month and a half ago that was pretty darn exciting,
Yeah.
and Jim Bloom came back.
Yes.
Did a great job, and he's been another community servant for years and years. So.
Yes. Yeah, Jim Bloom was here to give the talk, and we actually started an endowment fund in the name of Jim and Rose Bloom. Jim was a long-time president at DSNWK. So, yeah, it's exciting times, and we're getting out in the communities and telling people what we really do. A lot of people know us by our acronym, DSNWK. But that's Developmental Services of Northwest Kansas, serving people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. When you get to that level, people hear the disabilities part, but they don't really know what level of disabilities you're serving.
Well, talk about that just a little bit. In the Hayes area,
yes.
What does that mean in the Hayes area? Who would be the examples of some of that?
Well, we have individuals that are at our Reed Center, used to be the Homer B. Reed Center, who go through instruction classes, both personal and some type of employment classes, because our goal is to help people to be as productive as possible and as independent as possible, the individuals that have intellectual disabilities. And there's all different levels of that. We have some people that take 24/7 care. We have other individuals that are pretty independent. We have one individual that actually bought a house. So all those levels, we are the support to them with programs and services to help them become more productive and be part of the community. And I tell you what, Gary, I know you've seen some of this in our community and across western Kansas. It is a powerful thing to do, and it's something that we just can't let go. We can't let lowered funding pull us away from this task, because I think it's a noble task. That's I'm working part-time for them. I'm their planned giving officer. And I basically was retiring and going back to the farm to fix the farm.
You said it's the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do.
And when you see those individuals, you realize, that they do need the help, and they do need, and that's not only here in Hays, but it's the other 18 counties of finding a way to do that and make that happen. Somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they do that for developmental services?
The best way to get a hold of me is probably through my phone number. Can I give a phone number?
Sure, you can. We'll even put it on the screen there if you want your number up there.
That's 785-621-5327. You're going to hear a lot about us, and if you are of the spirit of helping us in our efforts to support people with disabilities, I welcome the call and we'll direct you wherever we need to direct you.
Now, is KanCare a part of that? Or how does KanCare fit into, because it's also a way of helping people in Kansas, and that's taken a hit as well through the state.
That's correct. KanCare is the privatization of the old SRS, Social Rehabilitation Services. That is primarily the Medicaid dollars that come out to people that are have low incomes or people with disabilities, all kinds of disabilities, traumatic brain injury, mental health, frail elderly, people with intellectual disabilities, physical disability, all those. There's 7 different categories. And that's funded by a privatized program called KanCare. So I'm on that, really I'm not on the oversight board, that's more of a legislative. I'm on the advisory board for KanCare. So we don't have any jurisdiction, but we kind of monitor the program.
Well, last part, we're going to take a break and come back. But the last part, if all of this volunteerism isn't enough, you have a special project on the side, and that's north of town. That's your farm.
That's right.
And a vineyard.
Right.
So you want to hear about that? Stay tuned. Our guest is Alan Schmidt. Back with more after this.
Hays Med is your first and best choice for healthcare. They're the only facility providing tertiary level services in this region. With more than 70 physicians and 26 specialties ranging from heart, orthopedic, spine care, cancer, obstetrics and gynecology, wound care, rehabilitation and surgery, including the Da Vinci robotic surgery, Hays Med is your comprehensive health provider for people throughout Western Kansas. Hays Med, helping people be healthy.
Are you frustrated with Wi-Fi dead zones in your home? It happens when you don't have Boost, the cutting-edge Wi-Fi solution from Eagle Communications. A Boost-certified Eagle technician maps your home, then installs a dual-band modem and router, plus discrete access points to deliver wall-to-wall Wi-Fi with no dead zones. Boost powers all your family's devices in all the places you love to live. Get Boost. Wi-Fi made simple. Only from Eagle Communications. Call today.
Welcome back to the second half of our forum here on Eagle Television. It's good to have you listening along as we're visiting with former State Senator Alan Schmidt, some of the projects we've been working on, including learning about the Kansas State Civil Service Board and what goes on there, developmental services, KanCare, and we're going to talk in a moment about the Vineyard north of town. If you have any ideas, questions, maybe solutions to some of the problems in our area, send me a note. Gary.Shorman@eaglecom.net. We'd like to talk to you, or we'd like to talk to maybe somebody you suggest for us. Again, it's Gary.Shorman@eaglecom.net. You can go on Facebook and find us under ECTV Forum. Alan Schmidt is our guest, former state senator, and just recently appointed to the Kansas Civil Service Board, Kansas State Civil Service Board, for doing that. We talked about that a little bit ago. We talked about developmental services. We talked about volunteering with KanCare. Now we're going to talk about the fun stuff. What got you started in the winery business, of all things?
How much time we got, Gary?
Well,
I'll be quick.
Be quick on it, the short version of that.
I spent 32 years in the Army.
Yeah.
And I finished up in Tampa Bay area. Was my last
there training in wine in the Army? Is that why we started there? No?
No, I'm just telling you that when I retired from the Army and decided to come back to the family farm, which was almost 100 years old at that time, we knew we were going to have a few grandkids, and we thought we wanted to have a gathering place. So we moved back to the farm. My son, who is a preschool teacher, in fact, he's got the intergenerational preschool at Via Christi. I don't know if you've heard that, but he's got kids right there in Via Christi interacting with the seniors. He's been fooling around with winemaking and picking grapes and things for about 6 or 7 years prior to moving back to Hayes. He decided to move back on the farm, and it was his idea to really get this started. So we call it Resurrection Vineyard. There's 2 reasons. We like the Christian connotation of it, but also we were standing out there picking out the vineyard spot on the farm, just a small vineyard. And I said, Brent, we were a dairy farm and a wheat farm. It's like we're resurrecting the farm. And he goes, I think I got the name.
That's the name right there, yeah.
So anyway, we right now, our vineyard is not producing just yet. So
that takes time. If you're going to get a vineyard to grow, it takes years and years, especially in, are we harsh environment here?
Well, we can only grow certain kinds of grapes, but you have 2,4-D, which is a chemical used on many of the crops here that are deadly on vines. And then, it's harsh winters sometimes. We lost the first round. We planted
Lost.
again.
What do you mean
I
lost?
mean, they died. Our vines
down to
died.
nothing.
Yeah. It was during that bad drought we had 3 or 4 years. We put it in again, and we had actually some grapes this year, but just not enough to harvest. So we're hoping we're going to get grapes next year. But we're bringing the juices in from different places, and we're making wine. And I tell you, a surprising thing, people like their wines around here. So we've been in different venues. We're down in we're out in Hickox, and we're down in Paisley Pear, and we've been in a number of wine tastings on Main Street. We'll be out the mall. People like our wines, and we've had to increase the production. We're going to stay small. We're a community winery. We want to have fellowship and invite people out to the
farm. You have a beautiful farm out there as well that allows people to come out and do that, which maybe the whole gathering thing right there is the fact that you're actually doing something that involves others. And so many farms turn into, and nothing's wrong with it, the big master farms that 20,000 acres and big tractors. What you're doing is the actual bringing the families together.
That's
that
correct.
Can help do things on the farm, including your 14 grandkids.
Yeah, and in fact, my son's 2 children and third on the way are the 5th generation. So it feels pretty good to come back here. We could have stayed in Florida. It's pretty nice down there.
It is, yeah.
But there's something special about being back here and being in Ellis County and being in the country on a farm that my grandfather started, 1914.
Amazing times. Well, thank you for being on the program with us, Alan. And I know that your community service has been important since you've been in the Senate before that as well. But that Civil Service Board will be interesting stuff, but developmental service hits so many of us right here and the people that we know in our community. So thank you for your parts in that.
And thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, Alan Schmidt's been our guest. Our program sponsor is Hayes Med. I'm Gary Shorman, and you're watching The Forum here on Eagle Communications, our community connected.
It's a beautiful day in our super high-speed internet great customer service neighborhood. Like you, this is where we live. In fact, our company is employee-owned, so it's our goal to improve the quality of life for everyone in our community by delivering faster, more reliable internet, clearer, more feature-laden phone service, quality TV channels, all with the level of customer service you'd expect from people who are your neighbors. Eagle Communications, our community connected.